I am Dr. Brian Artis. Welcome to the Dr. Artis Show. I hope you all are great at home. I hope your family's well. I hope you're safe. There's all kinds of chaos. Obviously, they're not giving up around the world. Today's going to be a fabulous interview with Stuart Wilkie out of England, and you have to pay attention to what he's going to present. First, let's get through the sponsors, though. Here we have North Texas Healing Center. Really appreciate them being a title sponsor for the Dr. Artis Show since the beginning. Go to NorthTexasHealingCenter.com if you live with any symptoms, want any help, or call them at 214-705-9369. If you would like to live a life symptom-free, believe you can live without drugs, go to NorthTexasHealingCenter.com and they'll help you out there. The next two sponsors are MyPillow.com and BrighteonStore.com. Both of them at checkout. Anything you purchase there, go there, put in the promo code DOCTOR, DOCTOR. That is for our audiences. They populate additional savings, 5% off at BrighteonStore.com, like you see on the screen, on anything you choose there. Please support Mike Adams and that platform. They've done wonderful work for us. And also, of course, support Mike Lindell and MyPillow.com. I appreciate them. They have these new sheets, supposedly, I saw the other day for $39.99, which I can't wait to get some. Some are on the way. I can't wait to have them. All right. Also, GraithCare.com is the final sponsor for this intro of the show. Go to GraithCare.com, use the promo code ARDIS, ARDIS, which is my last name. And you can also take advantage of there, which people are weekly, actually, taking advantage of the AAA option, which is you provide all your medical information to the individuals there that are your coaches to help you through your health situations. And you can actually get my own personal advice in your case. So appreciate everything that Priscilla Romans is doing at GraithCare.com. That is the combination of her two daughters, Grace and Faith, in case you wonder how that spells out if you're just listening, GRAITH care.com. All right, Stuart Wilkie, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself to the audiences. I just want everybody to know, I was shocked by something you just said right before we started recording. He's talking about this heat wave that's about to be introduced into England this next week. Says it's going to hit like 104, and human beings there in England aren't supposed to live through this kind of temperatures, and that's completely abnormal. I totally get it. Yesterday in my car here in Texas, it hit 111, and I told him, greatest invention ever in life, in my opinion, is air conditioning. And I said, everyone in England has air conditioning, right? And he said, no, only in the posh hotels. So I need everyone around the world to help me get all the people in England to Texas where we have air conditioning. So this is Stuart Wilkie. Please tell the audience who you are. You've been on the show before, and we've got a lot of documents we want to get through and expose a lot of the medical corruption there in the UK surrounding COVID-19 and this pandemic. Stuart, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Stuart Wilkie. I was doing medical research 40 years ago, and I was looking particularly at anticonvulsant drugs and drugs including benzodiazepines that were used in the treatment of epilepsy. Needless to say that 40 years later, I have found that it's been very useful to have had that knowledge and to have worked with a doctor. And I came with some sort of preconceptions towards it, but I'm trying to make it as scientific as possible. I'm familiar with looking through medical studies. And what I've been doing here is looking obviously specifically at the English case scenario, but also going globally, seeing what's happening in the USA, Canada, and Australia, and across Europe. But I've got some pretty shocking statistics and studies to show you, and I'll take you through them as swiftly as I can and as comprehensively as I can.
Yeah, let's do this, because I think this the more knowledge we have, the more exposure we have, the more things we can show the audiences. Obviously, I do this all day long, educating and then showing the things that are in print to help solidify the actual information. All right, Ren, can you put up the first study, please? We got 3 studies we're going to go through.
Okay, the first one here is just that the UK has just passed a key figure here. We've just had 200,000 COVID deaths, and of course America went past 1 million about a month ago. So proportionally, just to give you an idea, for the UK, all the figures that we quote here, you're going to be 5 times that amount, and that's proportional to our populations. If I quote anything from the English studies, that'll be 6 times. It's 5 times for the whole of the UK and 6 times if it's just an English study, just to give you an idea of the figures. So here we are, we're a fifth of your mortality figures, but this is for the whole of COVID. And just to give you an idea as to where I'm coming from to start here, our mortality figure for 2021 was 667,000 people had died. And back in 2020, it was 608,000. So there's a lot of other people dying. And the question is, what are they dying of, and how much can be genuinely attributed to COVID? So that's my starting point.
Very good. Next
Okay,
research
that's enough
study.
on that one. Okay, just to give you a sort of a baseline here in America, this was an early study in the first couple of months in 2020, and basically they're studying the mortality rate in the first 2 months, so sort of February, March, going into April, and they're coming up with 24.3% of people are dying from COVID. Now, at this point, things are very early on. We don't have obviously vaccines. And people like the wonderful Zev Zelenko, who unfortunately sadly lost, who was a great allopath and great doctor, and we should have a statue for him with Zev. I think underneath it may be zinc, azithromycin, and hydroxychloroquine underneath, because the world has lost a fantastic doctor with him. So I'm sorry to hear about that, but this just to give a baseline figure here. But I'm sad that we've lost Zev.
I love Zev Zelenko. In fact, my presentation in Virginia last Friday at the Reawaken Tour, I started with a 1.5 minute clip of him in our last interview in March, where he disclosed to the world and wanted the whole world to know that there was a Pfizer assassination list that he was number 2 on and had to be taken out in the next 2 months. This is actually 2.5 months when he died from when we did that interview. And he let the world know that I was number 1 on that list. But the message was he wanted the world to know how important him and I had become in trying to preserve and protect individuals from these deadly hospital protocols and promote early treatment. And then he said, which I wanted the whole audience around the world to witness him saying it doesn't matter how I die, it matters how I live. And him and I both, and a lot of us have been trying to show ethics, care, love for the human race, whereas so many others, it appears they just don't care, right, Stuart? And that study you just showed from New York early on, that's a part of a lot of my presentations, because inside of that March-April review, which is that time period early on in 2020, in New York, they were actually using remdesivir, and it was reporting 15 to 20% of all people on day 1 within 24 hours of treatment for COVID were going into acute kidney failure, which is one of the number 1 side effects of that drug. And we've exposed that nonstop. All right, next study.
Okay, next study up. Now, this is interesting. This is like a pre-study through MedRx IV. I just want to draw your attention to something here. I immediately thought this was an American study because I saw Yale at the top. I then saw BMJ. And then on the left, you'll see CSH. You know what CSH is?
No.
CSH on the top, just beside MedRx IV. Cold Spring Harbor.
Oh, no.
Cold Spring Harbor is the foundation place for the American Eugenics Office, right?
Actually, I do know that. Now that you just brought that up, if you go to the NIH's Human Genome Project website, they take you through that history of that actual facility. Very good. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Eugenics Record Office. They sterilized 400,000 Americans and a third of the Native American population. They still have all that statistics, and they keep it all there in a museum.
Go figure.
But I'm just wondering if that museum is becoming alive.
Oh,
because
also,
as you see down here, you'll see that this study is the largest in Europe at the time. And you'll see that there's 33% mortality figure on this one that are dying in the UK. You'll also see the name Jonathan Van Tam at the top there, and a guy called Dondelinger, not to be confused with his doppelganger. Dondelinger then went straight after this study to go and work for Hoffmann La Roche, who were the inventors and patent holders for midazolam. Now, it's interesting, this 33% figure. I want you just to hold that in your head, because later on you'll find that we ordered 3 times the amount of drugs. So maybe they used this 33% to order those drugs because they wanted more to die than. And it's difficult to come up with this, but you have these suspicions, but you'll see why this figure becomes important as we go on. So the next slide up, please. Right, this is an even bigger study, so just higher numbers. We're over 20,000 here, and we're coming back down to your figure of 24.3. We're at 26%, so it's not too bad. Now, the crucial thing about here is this is done between the 6th of February up to 18th, 19th of April. a couple of things happened immediately just before then and just afterwards. On the 20th of April, our government decided that they were going to do an interview with our health secretary, whereby they said there are three things you need for a good death. Now, the word good death translated is euthanasia. And the three things that they needed, they're talking about COVID, the three things you need for a good death are syringe drivers, the medications, and the people to administer them. So our government's pretty much setting a pathway here. And what they set up on this pathway was a protocol called NG 163, NICE Guideline 163. This is just a code, but what that policy is a death row administration, mass administration of morphine and midazolam for the elderly. There is no market authorization for morphine and midazolam to be given to somebody in the conditions, respiratory conditions, none whatsoever.
Let's
However,
actually put up the NICE
163
guidelines, actually. Can you throw that up there, Ren? It's the next one.
That's not it. That's the previous one.
It's actually titled NG 163. I've actually taken audiences through this document with Claire Wills Harrison out of the UK. Nope, not that one.
I know, yeah.
Not that one. It's actually titled NG 163, Ren. It just says NG 163 on the actual link. PDF. There you go. Yep, pull that up. All right, so this is the NICE guidelines.
So here we have, this is the answer for what they're going to do. And you'll notice it says including at the end of life in the community. So what they've done here at the same time as doing this, they've removed at this point 26,500 elderly people out of NHS beds that were already in hospital. They put them in care homes. They put false blanket DNRs on them, do not resuscitate, without consulting the family or the patient. And you'll see this one just predates that last study on the 3rd of April. And this is from NICE, National Institute for Clinical Excellence. And what happens here is that whatever symptom you get, so in other words, if you have a cough, you've got COVID. If you have a sneeze, you've got COVID pneumonia. If you have a hiccup, then you've got breathlessness, shortness of breath. And everything ends up, the only treatment for all of these things is morphine and midazolam. And if you scroll down through, you'll find a red highlighted bar as you go down through the thing. And what it will say is that if you are administering opiates and sedatives, you should not withhold them for fear of giving respiratory depression. So they're telling people, all these doctors and nurses, and including staff in care homes,
on page
I'll come
16.
to that in a minute. You've got the manager. I think it's about page 16.
It is. There you
Page
go, right
16,
there.
it's highlighted. Sedate, there it is at the bottom, yeah. So sedation and opioid use should not be withheld because of a fear of causing respiratory depression. So they're advising doctors, nurses, and you'll find out not only just care home staff, but lay people to administer injections of lethal drugs. And it's up to 30 milligrams of morphine and up to 60 milligrams of midazolam without any fear that it's going to cause respiratory depression and death. And this is what happened.
My audiences know about this.
Having heard... Right.
About the impact of it.
So now in your head, think, so now if you've heard now that we've just reached 200,000, but then we've got 670,000 deaths, but our normal death rate should be about 470,000. So in 1 year, there's 200,000 more, and the previous year proportionally about the same. So I'm thinking there's something really wrong with this. And we also have an ongoing end-of-life continuation of the Liverpool Care Pathway, which means that already part of those figures include ones that people at the state are already prematurely ending their life on these same drugs. So as I'm looking through, I'm trying to look for some kind of grand master plan. And there's a 99-page document, and it's talking about a review of palliative care medicine We can bring that one up, please. Oh, no, sorry. Okay, we'll go to this one first. This is what prompted my investigation right now. This is an end-of-life care COVID-19, an audit of the pharmacological management in hospitals. So we've got figures that we've previously discussed of 24%, 26%, and the highest figure is 33%. I then find this, which is a very small study. It's only 48 patients, N 48, but 40 of them die, and all of them were given morphine and midazolam.
Jeez.
And that's 83%. And it gives the figures. It's 14 milligrams of morphine and 9.5 milligrams of midazolam, although they actually miss out some of the higher figures, and they admit that there were some higher figures, so maybe around 10 milligrams. But this study triggers my brain. Why? It fits with me that there's a lot more people dying than are either dying of COVID, or are they actually dying of COVID, or are they dying of being injected with morphine and midazolam? So what I've tried to do is I've used this as the baseline and asked a hypothesis, a very tricky hypothesis to reach from such a small study. How do these figures match the amount of drugs that we've used and the population that we have? And then what's the percentage ratio? So that's my starting point here. But I'm also thinking there's got to be, for this to work, you've got to have some kind of national plan involved. And that plan, I will shock you now, started in 2011, but it carries on to 2031. It's called Palliative Care Review. It's a 99-page document, but I'll take you straight to the pages that are crucial. And the first page to look at would be page 6 of the Palliative Care Review. And bear in mind when this started, and bear in mind when the pandemic started, and bear in mind when this is going to conclude in 2031. That's the one. That's the one. And this is done from the Secretary of State for Health in the UK. And if we go down to page 6, executive summary on this, they wanted to know when they got into power in 2010, how many people they could actually finish the life off, and what an overview of how many they were actually killing at the moment. You'll see a figure of 470,000. Now, pre-COVID, I was working on a figure of around about 166,810 I came up with, and I'm seeing figures of 470,000 people. So instead of 457 people a day dying on the figures that I had, 166,810, you now have a figure of 1,252 people per day dying on morphine and midazolam. It's put under palliative care, but you're now finding the UK, and this is what I want to warn America of, this is what happens on social care. And you already have a social care plan modeled on our Liverpool Care Pathway, which a certain Hillary Clinton brought in and put into Obamacare. They dropped LCP and they replaced it just simply with EOL, end of life. You'll see the 470,000 there. As you go down through the study, you'll find that there was a shortfall of 92,000. So the figure would come up then to 549,000 people, 549,000. That is 1,504 people per day. If you go down, scroll down through on page 9, you'll see what this is all about. And you'll see that we're actually copying in green there, you'll see Australia. So Britain is not only going to copy the Australian model of doing this, so any Australians listening to this, and I know they do, it's your plan originally, we're going to copy that plan, but Britain in red, we're going to be a pathfinder. We're going to make a difference. This brought tear to my eye reading this. We are going to include children in this. So we're going to be the only people in the world that's going to have a palliative plan for all these children. And this plan includes putting a tariff on your head, and wherever you go, whether you're in a hospital, a care home, even in your own home, you go to the doctors, somebody can collect on that tariff. And this money comes from the state, from the government. We had a previous system called sequin plans, like payments, which were paid to hospitals to meet targets. They were originally 29% and 35%. So I was trying to find these figures when I found this document. And what you have here is 549,000 people a year being euthanized with morphine and midazolam. And this is in the full knowledge that these people are not just terminal cancer patients. These are not people that even are in pain. It's if you're over a certain age and you've got some comorbidities. And from this document, there's one more page I'd like to take you to, is page 64. As we go down. And this is the chart on page 64 as to the future of this. They look at the demographics, how many people are going to die. This chart is only for England, by the way. And they're going to see how many people are going to die. And then at the bottom of the chart, you'll see the planned breakdown and the change in the demographics. And they're going to make sure out of these figures, they're going to kill more people than should normally are projected to die, because they're going to carry on with this 1% of the population figure. So they are, for us, killing for England about 550,000 people, which is around about 1% of our English population. Equivalent to you in America, that would be, that would be 3 million, 3.3 million would be 1% per year. So we need to now look very closely at what's going on in America, because we know a lot of these things were being copied from America, which were learnt from Britain, and Britain was copying from Australia. And if you then go back to the eugenics history, it comes back to America, to Charles Davenport, the Eugenics Record Office, and then it comes all the way back to England again, which is unfortunately Francis Galton, who was the cousin of Charles Darwin. And he took natural selection and turned it on his head and basically said, if you want to have eugenics, then you only want to keep the good genes, and you want to get rid of anybody who's disabled. And then got extended to, if anybody becomes in later life too frail to do anything, or maybe even stop paying tax because you're not earning anymore, then you are useless. You become a useless eater. And this, unfortunately, is what's going on. And then we've got this organization out in Switzerland. I think it's called it's the World Eugenics Facade, I think it's called, WEF. And they think that this proposal is a good way of the West being made fit for the future. They think that it's in the sustainability of the stakeholders, companies like Pfizer and other companies that attended in January of 2020, that the way to go forward and to become, I mean, we just had the figure of 8 billion now with China and India, which is 30% of the world population. So for the West to be competitive, we basically have to kill off our elderly and our young who are disabled and autistic, and if we're going to be competitive in the future.
Well, I want to read something.
That is a completely flawed policy.
Yeah, I want to read something. I have not seen this document, so thank you for bringing it forward. That red line, put that back up there, Ren. I got to read this for the audiences. That last document we just had up. 6.2, changing demographics. All right, so it says in red, the first sentence, changing demographics with an aging population, longer chronic disease trajectories, and greater comorbidities provide further incentives to improve and expand palliative care provision. So keep it up on the screen. This was the most frustrating thing to me in my own personal experience with my father-in-law in February of 2020. He's 90 years old, Stuart. People have heard this story a billion times. But when they kicked me out on day 7 with security and said they would only talk to the family, I said they're going to put him on morphine and claim that it's palliative care, but they're going to murder him and euthanize him in front of you by causing respiratory distress and paralysis using morphine. And that's exactly what they did. They said, we need to give him morphine for 2.5 hours. It will reduce his pain, and then he'll be able to peacefully pass pain-free. And I said, that's not what you're doing. You're going to be actually overdosing him on a drug that paralyzes the diaphragm's ability to contract so you can't breathe or draw in oxygen, and then it's going to reduce his heart's ability to beat After 2.5 hours, Stuart, his heart was still as strong as it was before the 2.5 hours of poisoning, so they came in and got the family to authorize another 2 hours of morphine overdose. And eventually you overdose somebody on these drugs, it will create respiratory failure and they will die in front of you. I watched it. This is not something new. I just said they've been building on this platform and scheme. This happened to be right before COVID got to Texas even. And I said they used this same platform. It was working in hospitals across the United States to mass murder people. And now you can see here, it's actually in writing since 2011, this plot between Australia working with England, working with the United States to actually cull the herd. And look at the red highlighted date you put on there, Stuart. This needs to occur by 2030. What's the significance of 2030? Well, since 1960s, the Club of Rome started to say the resources for this planet at the acceleration and growth of the population of the Earth this planet cannot sustain the resources for the population growth that it is, and we have to do something by the year 2030. The planet can't survive. And they actually are telling you right now how many deaths they need to orchestrate on this page per year between 2011 and 2031 to accomplish that agenda. This is absolutely disgusting. It's egregious. Everyone needs to stay away from the hospitals. They're trying to mass murder people. Okay, Stuart, thank you. You can continue.
Sure. There's 2 points that just come up from that. One point is that there's all the existing charts of midazolam and for morphine, you can put them to one side when you mix the two drugs together. The concomitant use, the joint use of the two drugs has a synergistic relationship. And synergistic basically means they booster each other. And even heroin users will tell you that they take BZDs, benzodiazepines, such as midazolam, or in American Versed, or Ativan, which is lorazepam. And they do it to boost the effect of the narcotic effect of the opioid. But the opioid also has an additional effect above the two. So if you put 5 and 5 together, you don't get 10, you get 13, 15 effect. And this is one of the problems, and it's one of the biggest secrets. By mixing the two together, you're actually enhancing the effect of the drug. So it's no good weighing somebody from midazolam as if it's only midazolam. Once you introduce the morphine into that, you're going to give a booster effect, and they know this.
And we know this
I've been working on this.
We know that the NICE guidelines.
The other thing you mentioned about age.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, you mentioned about the age. Can I bring up the population triage slide, just that one page? Because it's got this is our population triage, and it starts at 50 for men, and you get 1 point. By the time you get 8 points, when you're 80, that's it. They will put you on end of life.
Yeah, put up the triage score there. There you go.
That's it. Yeah, this was actually, sorry for the quality of this one. This came out from the one and only decent article that we've had in the Sunday Times on the 25th of October, 2020. And you will see here that less than 50, you get no points, 50 to 60 to get 1 point. By the time you get to 60 to 80, well, between above 80, you get 8 points. Anyone scoring over 8 would be not only barred from intensive care, but you then wouldn't have access to oxygen. You then were also then sent out to the care homes. But if you're younger than one of these ages and you've got comorbidities, it bumps up your point score. So you could be 65, had a heart attack or something like that. You go in there with a hip or something gone, and before you know it, you've got more points and you're being knocked off. I heard of one gentleman who was 75. He had a broken wrist. They x-rayed it. It was broken. They didn't bother to cast it. They put him out to a care home on DNAR, and then put him on end-of-life drugs straight away. And all he had was a broken wrist. And he was a fit and active 75-year-old doing his garden.
Do you know when this COVID-19 triage score was published? Like how early on?
Well, yes, it came from another document, which is a massive document. I've changed my middle name from to Stuart PDF Wilkie now, because I have to go through loads of coded documents to find these things. They don't make it easy for you, but there are ways. And there's a document called Exercise Cygnus, which was done in April 2017. And our government has withheld that from the public, despite the fact we paid for the document and all the testing. And this was the pre-preparedness. We had a pre-preparedness minister, Oliver Letwin, and what he did was keep the document safe from the public on the basis that it would be too horrifying for any member of the public to read it. I have read it. It's horrifying and appalling that any government could conceal this from the public or come to the conclusion they did. And this was in the event of they were basing it on SARS-CoV-1. If there was any further future pandemic, the only thing that they could think to do is, instead of increasing the number of ICU beds, instead of increasing the amount of oxygen, instead of increasing the storage and quality of the PPE, or anything else that would be beneficial in the event of a pandemic, would be to sacrifice the elderly, take them out of the NHS, and that is what has happened. That is the narrative, is what has happened. They removed the elderly out of the equation, they killed them en masse in order to, quote, save the NHS. But we were never overwhelmed. And even though in the document itself, it said that this would only occur if the NHS was overwhelmed, they had a knee-jerk reaction and started off doing it immediately. We were never overwhelmed. There were always space in the Nightingale hospitals, and the people who have lost their lives, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them, it's all been done needlessly, whilst we've always had preventative cures for COVID. And that comes from Zev Zelenko with his three medications combined, which was very carefully worked out. We've always had the ivermectin. We've also had budesonide, which is one of my favorite ones. And you've got Dr. Richard Bartlett using that at 90% efficacy in Texas. And that has been confirmed that it cleared out an ICU of COVID patients because it just shuts down the reaction of the body. It's a glucocorticoid, and that just shuts down the effect of the cytokine storm on the lungs. It protects the body, and usually within 48 hours, the patients can return home. You can also use it as a prophylactic, and this can be done on a nebulizer costing about $100. And the drugs, the Respials, would cost you about $40. So for $140, you could have treated a COVID patient with 90% efficacy. Interestingly, it's still not at all being used in the UK. The World Health Organization have said now they would recommend it, only very recently, the start of this month. But in Australia, they're now saying it's actually strongly recommended, whereas remdesivir is plummeting, finally, but too late for all those that it's killed previously.
No kidding. And also, you can learn a lot and get research documents, doctors who can prescribe it. You can go to budesonideworks.com. Dr. Richard Bartlett's done a great job of exposing that, which is interesting. They don't allow that in the UK when the fact Oxford University, which is in the UK, actually did 2 studies to confirm the 90% efficacy you're actually quoting. This exercise Cygnus report, is that the one you provided to us that actually talks about inside that 57-page document that in the next pandemic it'd be best to just let the elderly go? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, exercise Cygnus. And just to follow up there with the budesonide, it's still not available in the UK. And even more remarkable, AstraZeneca was the company, which is an English-Swedish company based in Oxford, obviously famous for their vaccines as well, or infamous, I should say, for their vaccines. They actually were the patent holders. They were the designers of that drug, and it's generically available. It's cheap, as I say, and yet you can't get it over here. I actually specifically myself requested it when I was in hospital last December, and they refused to give me budesonide. I was offered remdesivir or ventilator.
Well, how old are you?
Those were the 2 choices, and I'm 61. Oh. So I've already got some points, and I've also got some comorbidities. So yeah, I'm in their target range.
Yep. Well, that explains it. My father-in-law was 90.
I'm within their sights. Yeah, I'm within their sights because of comorbidities. So, but I had to self-discharge, remember, to get out of the hospital.
Well, I'm proud of you, because if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be able to do this interview and expose all these documents. Thank you.
Absolutely. So just getting back to the big figures now, we've got that big page, the 99-page document. We got some figures, 549,000 per annum. I then wanted to compare this with our mortality figures for 2020 and 2021. 2021 comes out at 82.5%. 2020, I had to make one adjustment because we didn't have a full year. So I added an extra month because the study started from February the 6th. And although there would have been mortalities already within January, I just added one full month, and that accounted for the odd week, as it were, the first week of February. And that remarkably came out at 83.3%. So my hypothesis was proven correct, that the 83% stood. And that was both alarming. I mean, I was obviously pleased that the hypothesis was true, and I'd be quite happy if it wasn't. The only thing is, and I'll play devil's advocate to myself here, if that's the case, in the first 2 months, if the ratio was only 33% before, how come later on in the year, over the whole year, it made 83%? So it had to have been higher to come up with that average, or because they're aiming for targets, they wanted to kill a certain number of people, they just worked through that, and they had the monthly figures, they just worked to their target. And that's even more sinister. And you think of the chances of one being 82.5 and the other one 83.3, and I'm hypothesizing from a study I wasn't involved with that it's 83%. These figures come out at 83. So my hypothesis was unfortunately proven correct. Absolutely. So I then looked as how they actually were able to achieve this, the drugs. And I think Claire may have mentioned to you also about the use of French midazolam.
Yes.
And we got a letter from Accord Healthcare. So they've got to kill a lot more people, basically, in this period of time. This is our highest mortality figures ever. How are they going to do this? We've got a letter from Accord Healthcare, which talks about the fact that they've supplied 2 years of midazolam already, but they're run out of stock, so they had to get it from France. And they then require a further 22,000 packs of midazolam. Now, there's initially a problem here because the first thing is it's unlawful to have any medications. If you can imagine drugs appearing in Texas and they're written in French, that would be unlawful because none of the staff would be able to read the paperwork. And that's what we had here. And so that's the first thing. Then we found out that there was tampering, I should say, with the barcode, with the actual numbers on the package. So the advice in these Accord Healthcare letters was to remove the internal information, open the packet, remove it and throw it away. You've got more problems with that now because once you open a packet, it's been tampered with. So when a doctor or a nurse finds a packet that's been opened, they should discard everything, the contents as well. And the other anomaly here is, why did we need to go abroad in the first place? We have at least 3 companies that can make it, generic manufacturers in the UK. And we have Accord itself has plants in Ireland. And we have Halmeln, and we have a company called Vocart, which is part of the Worley generic manufacturers. And they're some of the biggest manufacturers in the world. So there wasn't actually a problem to produce it in this country. So why did we have to go and buy things from France? Well, either it was a really good deal, maybe it was some of it was out of date, that's been suggested, but then why tamper with the paperwork? And one of the problems we found is that the ones appear to be overlapping where the 5 numbers should be. And if you show this to nurses and doctors, and we've tried this in the UK, just by chance we tried it with somebody who was over in Spain, but happened to be a German doctor. We showed them the box and said, what dose is this? And they said it's a 1 milligram box. And the paperwork says 1 milligrams. And there's sometimes they put a ratio of 1 milligram per milliliter per 1 milliliter, and this gives you the ratio of drug to the amount of.
Hey, Ren, I want you to put up the Accord French PDF so we can show it. There.
Yeah.
It's titled Accord French PDF. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, you can keep talking.
So if you take a first look at that picture, you'll see midazolam Accord, and every nurse and doctor I've shown it to, they say, yep, that's a 1 milligram. That's a 1 milligram dose. And I say, you sure about that? And they go, yes. I said, so you'd administer that at 1 milligram? Yes. I said, but it says on the side 5 milligrams. And they go, oh, okay. So there's what? There's five in there? And I go, no, there's not 5 ampules. There's 10 ampules. Look, it says it on the side, 10 ampules. And they go, I'm confused. So you then look at the barcode on the bottom of this, just a little bit further down, and there. And if you go in on the barcode as close as you can, not the one just above the green, 5 milligrams in that area there, and you'll see there's been something done to the barcode. If you go closer, there may be another slide which shows it even closer than that. It's the ones on the packaging have been tampered with, and they have different fonts. Why would you even move this? I mean, if you saw that, you're a nurse and you're reading what you're showing up on the screen now, are you going to be able to understand it or not? No. So you have to have the packaging written in English. If that's not there, then the packet is void, it's illegal, and that's within our MRHA guidelines. That has to be the case for it to be used in the UK. So that's not been done. If you have a look at the 1 milligram underneath on the where it says midazolam accord, the one there, and then if you look at the barcode, the bottom of the barcode, above the 5 milligrams on the right, there's been tampering with the bottom, the numbers on the bottom, which means that it won't scan, but it also it's not traceable. So you have to wonder about this. So there's been some controversy here over whether these are 1 or 5 packs. It clearly says 5 milligrams. We've checked it. Clearly they are 5 milligram packs, but because of the way it's been written up in the paperwork, and they said we've only obtained the smallest dose of 1 milligram, this is why it caused problems. So we've got that issue. But if you look at the numbers, this is already ordered 2 years worth. This was a further order of another 3 months worth, which turned out to be 22,000 packs. So they're 5 milligram packs, and there are 10 ampules in each. So you've got 22,000 times 10 times 5. Okay, and you'll end up with milligrams, you'll end up at 1.1 million milligrams when you do the multiplication of the pack, 5 milligrams, the fact there's 10. So it's 50 milligrams in each pack times 220,000. Okay. So that's the dose is 1.1 milligram. That's 1 quarter of a year. We then have a previous 2 year stock that was used as well, and they'd all gone by the end of the year. So we then have 8 quarters of drugs of the same 1.1 million, and then we have this extra 1.1 million. So we have 9.9 million doses of drug. Okay? What we then did is just divide that by the 549,000 you saw in the 99-page document, and you end up with 18 milligrams per person.
Wow.
Purely by chance. I've been studying over 550 cases in the last 2.5 years. The average amount given to people is 17.5 milligrams.
Which you round up to 18.
Usually accounted for by a first initial dose of 2.5, and then 3 cases of 5 milligrams, or they'll do 1 of 5 milligrams and then a 10 milligram, finish them off. And often in front of the people. They say that making them comfortable, and they walk through and give this drug, and then the nurses will turn to the families and say, I don't think they're going to make this. They're not pulling through.
And I want to share some numbers here. You talk about this average of 18 milligrams of midazolam per person being treated, 17.5. You actually did the math here, and you calculated for a 75 kilogram male, which double that for Americans in pounds, just about. It's 2.2 pounds per kilogram. You're at like 150 pounds. It will be 11.25 milligrams to get you to the point where you're going to have respiratory depression, death. And then for 11.25 milligrams is what you calculated here. And you're saying it's 17.5 milligrams on average is what they're given. And then for females at 50 kilograms, which is about 110 pounds or so, It's just 7.5 milligrams is when respiratory depression commences. And that's twice.
That's correct.
2.5 times that amount.
Yeah, and midazolam by itself will start. It's the calculation for that comes from 0.15 milligrams per kilogram. So you times that by the weight. We usually use kilograms over here. So as you say, 50 is 110 pounds. If it was 100 kilograms, obviously it would be 15 milligrams. But what they do is they give it usually over a couple of days. Sometimes it's longer. But they start doing these 2.5 milligram doses. Now, in the medication charts over here, we have an electronic medication compendium, which they use in the UK. If anybody is over 60, there's two criteria. One is if they're healthy, otherwise healthy. So say you were going to have some surgery done, and they would work it out that you would use 2.5 milligrams as a starting dose. If you are in any way disabled, debilitated is the word they use, they reduce that by 5-fold to 0.5 kilograms. Then you would give 1 milligram, and each time you would check for any respiratory depressant effect, any change in the respiration rate, and any reduction like that, you would tone the doses back down again. They're giving you not just 5 times, they might even be giving you 10 times that dose. If they go, and often the doses were said 2.5 or 5 milligrams. So if they gave 5 milligrams to somebody who's completely naive on this drug, then that would be 10 times what this dose should be. If they're in hospital and they're ill and they've got COVID or they've got any breathing problem whatsoever, then they're immediately overdosing them. And then the only intention of carrying on giving these drugs is to end their life.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you.
Unfortunately, the sad truth.
So I want to bring this real quickly here to America for our audiences here.
Sure.
We are worldwide, which is phenomenal. I love everyone in every country. You know, we're trying to expose this, and people around the world have just taken to the information we've brought to them according to the hospital protocols. Absolutely. But one thing I want to make sure all United States people are aware of, he's talking about the fact that midazolam and morphine together synergistically boost the respiratory depression effects of these drugs and the deadly toxic effects of the drugs. Here in America, for those of you going into hospitals, if you haven't seen this yet, we've talked about this a million times, the sedation drug combos they're using in the United States hospitals is a cocktail of 5 different types of these drugs. It's any combination or cocktail of these: morphine, midazolam, lorazepam, which you mentioned was Ativan, and then fentanyl, and a drug called Precedex. Every single COVID-19 death and hospitalized patient in America, you'll see these sedation drugs. Any of these 5 in combination, they can either be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. It doesn't matter. All of them make the respiration depression worse. And you're dealing with supposedly a respiratory distress syndrome. And you're going to add these sedation drugs as an excuse for ventilation on top of the toxic effects of remdesivir. This is why we continue to try to warn and inspire you. He's talking about the combination of these 2 drugs in an end-of-life protocol they used to murder people in the UK. There's been an orchestrated plan since 2011 in writing that this is what they're trying to accomplish and how to do so, and how many people per year they need to kill before the year 2030, or even leading up to the year 2030, at least in these documents. Okay, continue on, Stuart.
We'll finish up with so now, having proved the hypothesis and proven the methodology and how they managed to get hold of these drugs, as I say, it's 27 months were used within 9 months. It's 3 times the number. And if you just times the number that I had pre-COVID, which was 166,810, you're pretty much over the 500, over 500,000. It's pretty much, it works out. I reckon what they did was they got that first figure, if you remember, of 33% from that study, and they thought not enough of them are dying. Let's get 3 times the amount. This is our one big chance. We lock everybody out of the hospitals. We lock them out of the care homes. We can do what we want. And that's what they've done. So that's where the figures all come together. And look, now let's see how that translates monetarily wise. We've got a chart for Pfizer. Now, we mentioned Ativan again, lorazepam. That went up 34% in the month of February. But we've got the net worth chart of Pfizer for from 2019 right the way through up to July 1st of this year.
Scroll up so we can
And
see the
on
title
that chart,
of this, Ren.
you will
Scroll up
see
to the
that
top.
just before at the start of this,
Ren, show the
it
top.
was 160, if that's the Pfizer one. It was 100. There it is at the bottom there. It was, if you can just scroll up slightly. It goes down to, it was 160 billion worth, right? Just at the start of the pandemic in January 2020. And it peaked, has gone up to peak at 292.7 billion.
Ren, take the cursor and roll over 2020. Just roll over 2020. It'll show you the value.
Yeah.
Go to 2020. There you go.
Yeah.
So you'll see 224.
Go back to that really dip at the bottom.
So you see.
Go right back to the dip there. That's it there.
So 160 billion.
Right. And then you go right to, yeah, right. And then you go right to the very, very top, the highest point. Right. And the July 1st figure that I had was 292.7. Whatever that was.
Well,
and just by chance that happened to be 83%, but that's purely coincidental, I think.
83%. Jeez and Pete. Yeah, you scroll over 12, 13, 20, 21. It's 333 billion.
Wow, that's even higher. That's even higher then. Yeah. I mean, that's about 6 Scotlands, that is.
Yeah.
It's a massive wealth. And what I'm saying is the profits far exceed. So one of the figures that I found on there was it came up as 292.7. Well, I think that's the figure on July 1st that I had. And what it shows is the massive growth. It's doubled in size from there. It's 160 billion up to 330 billion. But as of the 1st of July, it was, I believe, 292.7. And that happened to be 83%. But if that figure, as it carries on, it doesn't quite come out on the chart like that. But you can see the amount of money that Pfizer has made. I just want to finish one final point. We've got some good news. And this is what I want to finish with. We have an Australian senator, Gerard Rennick, and there's a tweet that I put up. And this is the first senior person who must be listened to, who was brought up midazolam, remdesivir. The fact that these, I'll call them pharmaceutical companies, are causing death and they need investigation. And he's the only person in Australia to do this. And now what we want is in America, Canada, and Britain, for our senior politicians, so for us, the House of Lords and maybe some MPs, but certainly some senators and congressmen in America, to look at this data. And if you can make this data available to them, I'd be most welcome, so that they can bring this up. Because I don't believe our states, our nations have any right to kill their citizens. It's the first duty of a government to protect their people. And in the same way that you can't have an American army active on your soil, how can you have the state actively killing your own people? And it's the same here in the UK. So I believe what we have to have legally is a notation. Notation is a new contract with our parliament that they don't kill our people. And it would be the same for you with the Senate and Congress and your government, that they have no rights to kill us.
Well, this is great. Can you give the name of the senator again?
Yes, sure. Senator Gerard Rennick, Rennick. And he's followed up on the story of Nada Kovacevic, who I mentioned to you previously. And he's actually seen the document. He's seen the 99-page document. I know because I sent it to him.
Senator Gerard Rennick, I want to interview you. And the whole world needs to follow you as an example.
Absolutely. And if you go on his tweet and you go and say how wonderful it is that he's brought it up, which is what I did immediately as soon as I heard, this is the big conversation. It's the biggest conversation I think we need to have with our governments. Because if they're going to kill 500,000 of us plus a year and So 550,000 of us and maybe 3.3 million Americans a year, approximately 1% of the population, by these means, which are prolonged torture, air hunger. It's a terrible way to die. It's not a good death. There's no way you could ever explain this as a good death. So what are they doing here? They're killing their own people. We're paying them taxes to protect us, not to kill us. And it's a flawed policy. This idea of killing elderly people is somehow making you lean and fit. It's making you evil, cruel, and unfit to serve.
I 100% agree. Stuart Wilkie, we're going to make sure all these documents are a part of what we present on our site so everyone can download, get access to these. Some of these we've exposed before with Claire, Wills Harrison, and others, and you, I believe, early on. But we'll definitely make all of these available also as an adjunct to this actual presentation. Thank you so much for all your hard work. God bless England. God bless everyone around the world. Please, please stay informed. And man, I hope more leaders in government around the world will take a step forward and acknowledge the problems with these medications and protocols that are end-of-life guidelines, actually, and protocols. Great job, Senator Jared Rennick. I'm very proud of you. May the rest of the world stay in the same. Stuart, any last words? I mean, you had some good news there at the end. Any other final thoughts for the audience?
Well, I was trying to cheer you up at the end. Also, that Pfizer itself has a duty. In 2016, it said that no midazolam, it was one of 7 drugs that were used in lethal injections, would ever be used for this purpose. They need to hold themselves to account on this one. I'm going to give them an opportunity here live on your program. Pfizer need to act now, because they made this mandate in 2016 that these drugs would never be used for this purpose. And 34 other drug companies were supposed to follow them. And they need to be held accountable to that right now. And any doctors or nurses, if you think when you give that injection into an elderly person, you're helping them or making them comfortable, you're not, you're killing them. And you need to stop it immediately.
I'll quote that again. We need to stop that immediately. These drugs kill, they murder. They actually euthanized my father-in-law in front of me and my family. It was a god-awful thing to witness. I don't understand why anybody's okay with this to continue. Stuart Wilkie, thank you very much. I'm going to have to get to the next interview. God bless you. Please always reach out to us and let us know what you've uncovered so we can continue to warn and inspire the world and to demand change. And Pfizer, absolutely, you need to hold true to what you said in 2016, which was no one should ever receive this protocol or this drug, midazolam. We love you, Stuart. Thank you very much, and God bless you guys through this heat wave over this next week. Go to the posh hotels where they have air conditioning. Just go flood their lobbies because they'll be cool. All right.
I'll check myself right in there right now.
Very good. All right, Stuart. Thank you. God bless you and your family. All right. So the rest of this interview, please share this worldwide. This is very important because there's been a organized, structured plan in writing since 2011. He just showed you of how they're going to cull the herd and go after the elderly to reduce the populations of the earth. This is what they're doing. So please make sure you know and share this with everyone around the world. Please share it with everybody you love because they need to be warned. They need to be inspired to take action. And remember the forms we have on our site, which I know can be duplicated around the world. They're advanced medical directive forms at thedrartisshow.com. It was written up by attorneys here. Please copy those, use them, have attorneys write up your own. If you ever have to go to a hospital, please, it doesn't matter. Like you mentioned here in this interview, someone had a broken wrist. They have things they're going to look for considering comorbidities. They're going to have a triage score, and they're going to want to put you on these protocols to end your life. This is the hospitals around the world are being incentivized to do this, regardless of what you go in for. So please have a medical advance directive in place. We have examples of those on our site. It's the first form on the forms and documentation site of our page at thedrartisshow.com. And then also everyone needs a medical power of attorney form or whatever they legally call that in your country. You need to have a form where you designate someone to speak on your behalf for you that has to make medical decisions for you if you become unconscious and are threatened with these damned protocols like they're using around the world. All right, so that's what I want to say. Stuart, thank you very much again. I'm going to be signing off with our remaining sponsors, but I love you now. I appreciate everything that you've done on behalf of humanity and educating me and our audiences around the world. Thank you. Australia, stay strong. New Zealand, stay strong. Canada, America, England, we're praying for all of you. All right, the final sponsors for our show are KirkElliottPhD.com. That's where I trust my wealth management and all of our finances as they're trying to destroy and kill the elderly in this world. And massively go after specific races. Native Americans, you mentioned. Blacks, Hispanics, they're going after them. Please, they're trying to kill people. They're trying to destroy you financially. Also, trust KirkElliottPhD.com. Go there and tell them Dr. Ardis sent you. For those of you who know, they're trying to destroy the supply chain of food to the world. Go to GrowMax Hydro, GrowMaxWaterHydro.com. Put in the promo code DOCTOR, 10% off. That helps to remove impurities, chemicals put into our water systems that could destroy your plants and make them unhealthy. Go there now and support our efforts there. Hydromax.com. Actually, it's H2Bev.com. Is a nitric oxide-based drink. I love this product. I drink it every day, actually. On an empty stomach, just one every day, improves circulation and improves your health overall. Go to h2bev.com, put in the promo code DOCTOR, save 10% off, and subscribe there. I get mine delivered every 2 weeks, actually. I actually switched from another company because this one provides more nitric oxide for longer hours. Watch those interviews to learn more. And then Dr. Stella Emanuel, MD. Go to drstellamd.com. She's like one of those warriors like Zev Zelenko that we love and miss so much. Go there if you need prescriptions for hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, budesonide, as we discussed here. Use the promo code DOCTOR, and you'll get 5% off. You know what I find funny about this one? Dr. Stella is a doctor, but she gave me the promo code DOCTOR, which is ironic. Anywhere you shop online in the world, use the promo code DOCTOR. It'll benefit you, and they'll populate percentages off. All right, Stuart, thank you very much. We're going to be signing off. Say goodbye to the audiences worldwide and say Godspeed and give them your love.
Take care.
Thank you. Everyone have a great week. Stay safe. Bye.
Disclaimer. Please note, the following presentation is solely for informational purposes and should not be seen as a replacement for advice provided by your physician. It is important not to rely on the information from this presentation for diagnosis, treatment, medication prescription, or any other form of medical care. Always consult with your physician or healthcare professionals before taking any medication, nutritional supplement, herbal remedy, homeopathic treatment, or pursuing any health-related procedure. If you have a medical condition or believe you might have one, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it based on this presentation's information as the products or services purchased from it do not establish a doctor-patient relationship between you and any affiliated physicians. Statements about dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.